Stephen King's Carrie is one of those rare stories that really codifies a whole load of tropes, cliches and ideas for a couple of years to come. But it's also rare in that there are 3 separate adaptations of it on film, one from 1976, one from 2002 and one from 2013. But you're a busy person living in the modern world. You've got your BuzzFeed and your Tinder, your Deliveroo and your Uber and your Airbnb and your WhatsApp and your wireless cellular telephones. You haven't got time to watch 3 whole feature films, so which Carrie, should you invest your time in? Well, let's find out. Now, I don't want to be unfair, and I certainly don't want to bully, but first things first, we really should just get rid of 2002 Carrie. In many ways, each Carrie film is like a time capsule, recording with this incredible accuracy the attitudes and ideas of the times they were made in. But unlike the others, that's all 2002 Carrie is. Dated. It has no subtext, no big stylistic flourishes, it has no real redeeming features apart from a great performance by Angela Bettis.
Thank you.
So that's it, 2002 Carrie in the bin. Next please. Now 1976 Carrie was revolutionary for horror cinema. It's hard for us to understand now, but Brian De Palma was a huge force for change in the industry at the time. This became one of the major codifiers of horror cinema, and its crowning achievement was perhaps introducing the shock ending, a trope which still thrives today. For Brian De Palma, the story of Carrie is one of oppression. Carrie's mother and Christianity as an endless, crushing force that threatens to snuff out the light of one incredible girl. When she fights back and kills her mother, it's a great release for the audience and for her. That Carrie's attempts to free herself also destroy her classmates is just collateral damage for De Palma's preoccupation with Christianity. That and a nice way for him to show off his directorial prowess with some of the best split screen you'll ever see. In direct contrast, 2013 Carrie is directed by Kimberly Peirce, famous for Boys Don't Cry. With her own directorial intent firmly in mind, Peirce moves Carrie away from the glossy surrealism of De Palma's approach and instead opts to focus on what Carrie's story is about for her, which is the horror of being a woman, especially a young woman. The film begins with the difficulty of an unwanted birth, then covers the shower scene in a more visceral way than De Palma. For De Palma, this is an opportunity to deny titillation from a male audience by first feigning a pornographic soft focus, then introducing crowd hatred and menstrual blood. Peirce wants to focus on the horror of what Carrie is feeling, both emotionally and physically. Her own brand of horror is more interior, I think, than De Palma's. Peirce applies a strongly psychological eye to the whole story, building Chris as a villain constructed from privilege and entitlement, a modern sociopath deadened to the impact of her actions. Likewise, Moretz's fears and joys are mostly more psychological than SpaceX. She has these joyous moments of self-discovery while exercising her powers. Here, what Peirce is doing is drawing parallels between the growing paranormal powers of Carrie and the growing, developing physicality within herself, her own body, you know, dirty pillows and periods and the like.
I can see your dirty pillows. Everyone will.
There are actually significant faults with all the Carrie adaptations. De Palma's film has a glacial pace and it's not helped by his endless visual trickery, which wears thin rather quickly. Peirce's film, on the other hand, has obviously been extensively cut. For some reason, central characters barely have any screen time, including Sue, who actually is pretty much the central character of the book. Peirce also has to contend with the sizable legacy of De Palma's film, and I think that's pretty much where her film really falls down. The way that Carrie's mum dies at the end of that film is very, very similar to the 70s one. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was actually reshot to match it slightly closer. Even down to things like the layout of Carrie's house is very similar to De Palma's film. That's something I think you have to be very careful with when you're doing a remake, especially one where the film, like the 1976 Carrie, is so highly regarded. Every time you draw attention to the fact that all you're doing is remaking something that was done by someone else before, you invite the audience to compare what you've done to what they've done, and it's very rarely going to be favourable. Even in cases like this, where I think a lot of people would go back to De Palma's film now and look at it and think, this has not aged well at all. It kind of is a good thing that they cut a lot of stuff though, because the film's also very, very long, and it also has some dreadful CGI sequences in it. So yeah, there's a lot of problems with the Carrie films, and in particular Peirce's film has quite deep problems, I think, structurally. So, which Carrie are you going to watch? 2002 Carrie's in the bin, don't forget about that. So it's just between 1976 Carrie and 2013 Carrie. It's really difficult to say, they both have a lot of stuff going for them. I think in the end it's going to have to come down to an interpretation about what you think Carrie's story should be about. I mean, I love that book. I got it when I was aged about 15 and I went for it all in one night and I couldn't stop crying, which I think is embarrassing to tell you that, but true. I was bullied when I was a kid, and that aspect of Carrie's story always really stuck out to me. I think it's a really important one. It's one of the most interesting looks at bullying I think I've ever seen in kind of literature or in film as well. And in the end, purely based on that interpretation of what Carrie's about, I think I have to prefer Pierce's film. I suspect that's going to be an unpopular opinion, so I'd like to unpack it a little bit if that's okay. For me, where Brian De Palma's film fundamentally falls down is in its adopting of a surreal, almost glamorous stylistic approach.
It's beautiful.
Carrie isn't a pretty woman, her story isn't a pretty story. King's book is fundamentally about beating people down and the consequences of that. It's about the horror of small town life. It's about how much high school sucks. It's about the breaking of someone's soul. And I think that De Palma is too tied up in his stylistic flourishes to really understand that or to give that its own space in the film that he's making. It's not that I have a problem with stylization. Some of my favourite films are actually from the school that De Palma's kind of imitating here, the Giallo school of cinema, but I think it's the wrong directorial approach to make there. And Pierce's film, for all of its failings, is a much better attempt to understand that. Now, I don't think that Pierce's film actually manages it either. I think it's a little bit too tied to De Palma's, and I think it's got a lopsided script, and it's been quite badly cut, and a lot of the acting isn't really up to scratch. But Pierce's directorial approach, I think, is the right one, because it's rooted in a sort of psychological realism that just grounds the story in a way that makes its themes resonate more and makes it all that more heartbreaking when the bucket of blood finally drops. So there we have it. From too many Carries to just one Carrie. Watch the 2013 Carrie and see what you think. I'm not saying you shouldn't watch 1976 Carrie, I just don't think it's as good an adaptation. And if you disagree with me there, and I'm pretty sure some of you will, then please, comment down below. I'd like to see what you thought about it as well. So I'll see you in the next video, and until then, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Halloween content this October. See you later.